Okay, so up until this point, so far all I've been talking about was gathering your text reference, understanding your surface qualities, and just dealing with the images themselves. So right now I want to dive into the actual model. And so here we go. Here's the model. Thanks to my friend Patrick Gagne. He did a fantastic job on modeling this guy. Um, And so now in Maya, I'm just going to use Maya to export my UVs and export my OBJs for body paint and eventually Moto. Um, so these have already been UV'd. So if we look at the UVs for a second, I've already applied some basic shaders to the objects just so I have them selected for the UV shells. So if I go to Window, UV Editor, here are my UVs. I'm not going to go into the realm of UVs. I think that's a DVD in itself. But for my purposes, um, I just wanted to make sure that everything was uniform in terms of one-to-one space. Uh, so everything, when I'm painting in Photoshop, I can be sure that I'm not going to get any distortion um, because of stretching UVs or whatnot. So so I'm going to kind of just skip over UVs and just show you what they are right now, how I've laid them out, and continue forward. So from here, I'm going to just quickly get some UV snapshots. And I'm going to paint these at 4K. So I haven't really touched upon resolution. Um, for this asset, I'm going to assume that I'm in production and this asset is seen right in front of screen, so which is considered a hero asset. Um, so for my purposes, knowing, let's close this, knowing that, whoops, that this is going to be seen, for instance, at this distance, and from here to here is going to be a 2K projector um, in a theater. What I want to do is make sure that I have enough resolution in my map so when it gets close up on screen that all the detail that I'm painting holds up and nothing goes soft. Um, so a general rule of thumb I like to have is paint a little bit more resolution than you probably need, because in the end, if it's too much, you can always res your images down and preserve that detail. But if you paint at a resolution that's not enough, you can't res that up, and you're going to end up having to repaint what you've done. Um, so for me, I want to paint this, save this out as at 4K, um, which is double the size of this screen here. So essentially, this entire screen is 2K, and my resolution is at 4. So I can essentially have this model at about here. Because on this map, from there, let me move this over, from here to here is 4K. So I'd like to double what I get what I'm eventually going to see. Um, and, and from my experience, that'll be plenty of information that you can put in your maps without worrying about soft details. So let's save this out to let's just create a quick folder here, UVs, and let's call this leather body. Let's save this as a TIFF. Say OK. So I have a UV snapshot for this piece. I want to get a UV snapshot for the rest of it. So this is on another UV shell. I did have a wire here, but I ended up taking that out just for the purposes of this DVD. We're just going to focus on painting the body of this. So let's snapshot this. Call this metal bits. Save and save. Okay. So now from here, I'm going to, all I need to do now is save out my OBJ for body paint, which I've already done, but I'll show you what I've, pretty simple. Go to export selection, OBJ export, export selection. I have it here, old clock, and you save it out. So now let's go into body paint and check out the model. What I did was, let me create a new scene. So here's body paint, and I'm going to merge my OBJ right here. And this scale here is originally set at 1. I like to bump it up to 100 based on the scale of my model. That way I can tumble around it with more ease. At scale 1, it kind of goes nuts when you try to tumble around things. So all this looks good. Let's import that. So here's my model. And here are the 3 shaders that came in with it from Maya. And I'm going to activate these right now. And I'm going to start prepping this for painting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select texture tags and go into actually let's skip that step. I'm going to start applying a texture to my shaders. So I just double click on the X and just load a texture for each one of the shaders. So now I have a base map that I can paint onto. So what I want to do now is I want to isolate this front area. Because this is a pretty geometric shape, it's going to be pretty easy to project my images. I'm going to project from the front, the side, both sides, top and bottom. So I want to project from the front right now, and I'm going to go to front camera. Well, actually this is oriented differently. There we go. So I get a nice fleshed flat image, and I'm going to open up my layer manager right here. Right click, add a new layer. You can see that right there. And this will be my paint layer. So when I export this to Photoshop, paint on it, everything's going to be saved to this layer and not baked down to the base gray layer, which is important. So when I export back into Photoshop, I can extract just what I painted. So now I'm going to freeze my camera. I'm going to freeze it at 4K, which is the resolution I want to paint at. And then hit this button here, which is going to prepare my projection for painting. So now I have this PP layer. And I'm going to right click on it, save texture as PSD, and projection. Let's start with front view. Go back to Photoshop. Gotta find my front view. There we go. So now you can see, because in body paint I have this paintbrush selected on this shader, it's only going to allow me to paint within the confines of this area, which is what I want. I like to have this piece here so I have an idea of what's going to be hidden behind that. So now let's now I have this front view. I'm going to open up my reference. Let's open up the front. And I'm going to apply my first projection. Now this model isn't exactly one-to-one. It was modeled from eye, which is actually nice. So we can't exactly just take this entire thing and throw it on there because it won't match and fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M and just select this piece here, this corner. Because this is all on separate layers, if I try to copy this, it won't let me with a Control C because it needs a flattened image. But there's two ways I can do going about doing this. I can just take all this, duplicate it, and flatten it, or I can just Shift Control C, which will copy anything in this viewport, and then Control V pastes it. So now I'm going to just quickly retrofit this back in. I'm not going to worry about the edges so much. I just want to fit this into the front view. So that I'm pretty happy with. So I'm going to get this nice front. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about this edge here because I'll be projecting from that side later on. But I just want to get a nice flushed front face. Copy it. Bring it on over. Now I like to double up on my, when I'm selecting things to copy over, I like to select things that I've already copied. For instance, this corner here with the stripes. So it gives me reference of where to match up to. I'm just going to move this in. That down a bit. Fit that in. Now this isn't 100%, but I already have that area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and create a layer mask and take a soft brush, and because it's on white, it's revealing everything. Like mentioned earlier, if I invert it, it disappears. So what I want to do is just very gradually fade this area off. And if I hit X, I invert this here from black to white. So I can quickly just seamlessly blend this information. And then towards the edge here, I'm going to go to a hard edge brush, just so we don't get any fuzziness. So there. Now we have this nice seamless blend here. And then go through here, select this piece, paste it in, and repeat the process. Happy with that. That's not exactly lining up. That's a bit better. So I'm happy with all this right now, so I'm going to flatten all these down. And the shortcut for that is Control E. Flattens everything down. And then my final piece is this top area here. Now for now, I'm not going to worry about this upper area because I'm going to provide another projection to get rid of that. I just want to try to get as much of this front face as possible. Flatten that down. So now I have a pretty good front view of the textures. I'm already noticing that this yellow, these stripes are not perfectly straight as they go up here, kind of curve off based on the perspective. Again, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to get 90% of this front view projected. So I'm happy with this, and I'm going to just save it. Just Control S. Go back into Body Paint. Right click, Texture, Merge Texture, Front View. Hit OK. And there we have it. So now we're going to get out of freeze camera, and it's going to bake this onto the UVs. And then get out of this mode. So now I can actually thumb around and check this out. Perspective. So here's my front projection, which is pretty good so far. So now I'm going to go here to the actual texture, save as, Photoshop, and then just save it in here. Doesn't really matter what the name is. And in Photoshop, I'm going to open it up. And here it is on my UV sheet. So now I want to transfer this over to my master UVs, or master PSDs, which I haven't created yet. So I'm going to do that right now. Like I was talking earlier about non-destructive workflow, for me it's very important to have a master PSD for all the textures that I paint, because there will inevitably be times where you'll need to change things and update things or revise things based on, you know, visual effects supervisors, directors, things like that. So you want to have, it serves two purposes. You want to have a master PSD so you can do those changes quickly and efficiently. But also sometimes the textures get passed around to other painters if you're not on the show anymore. And to have a master PSD file is very helpful, because then someone else can basically pick up your work and just kind of run with it. And if you don't have that, then everything's flattened down into one image, and the next painter is going to have a very, very tough time updating your work if need be. So here are my UVs. I'm going to hit W for the magic wand. Just select black. So it's going to select around all these UV shells. I'm going to hit Shift Control I to invert the selection. Go to selection, expand it by 10 pixels. Shift Control I again. Shift Control N for new layer. G for the paint bucket. And I'm just going to put an arbitrary value as my borders. And then put this as a multiply. I'm just going to quickly do this and then explain it afterwards. So what I have here is, what I like to do for my textures is get my UV shell and create a 10 pixel bleed around my UVs. This way, this allows for, if there's any sub-Ds or any kind of smoothing that happens in the rendering process, you don't get any edges. And this ensures that what you're painting outside this UV edge, UV border, which will save you a lot of painstaking work down the road if you're not wary of this edge and you're not painting exactly to it or beyond it. And another purpose is, visually for me, it's just easier to see what I'm painting when I have borders around stuff. When I don't have a border and I'm painting, for instance, I'm going to bring over my original projection. So when I'm painting from here, it's very difficult for me to see what I'm doing because it's kind of this arbitrary space. But with a simple layer like this, I get a much better idea of spatially of where everything fits. And this helps me in my painting process to move a bit faster and apply details logically, rather than without this border, I'm not sure where the edge of this part of the clock ends. But with it, I say, okay, here it is right here. So then I can add details appropriately, which saves me a lot of time. So for right now, I'm not going to worry about this stretching, this bleed that happened for the projection. I'm I'm going to quickly go through and project all these other sides, and in the next chapter show you a finished result of all my projections, and then take it from there.